Welcome to the talk that Julie Blackwell-Young and myself are going to give around about the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, a case study based on some projects that we've been investing in at Abertay University. I'm just going to share my screen with you and bring up the presentation, and hopefully things should go smoothly from here on in. If I just move to the next slide. So just to give you an overview, obviously one of the things as academics we believe in is both the value of research but the value of our teaching as well. And so what we have been doing in recent years at Abertay is investing specifically in projects which are to provide an evidence base against our teaching, learning and assessment activities. So Julie's going to speak in a few minutes in relation to the range of projects that we have invested in, and also what the output has been associated with that. But I say year on year since 2014, we've been doing these projects and learning from the sort of iteration of applying them and bringing those through to our kind of Abertay sort of learning philosophy. After the first year, we sort of did a kind of reflection on the process, and one of the things we felt that was missing was some projects had involved students, not just as subjects, but in the kind of data collection in a much more kind of embracive and holistic way. And that's something then we sort of built into the criteria for funding for the project, was that we needed to see some evidence that students were being involved as partners, and that became a prerequisite. There are a number of other things that we've kind of looked at as criteria when we've been funding the projects. They are reviewed by a panel. We try to encourage people who haven't had sort of funding before to come forward, but to be supported by others who have. So there's a mentorship aspect involved as well. The projects quite clearly align with the QA Scotland enhancement themes. So again, it's about us building evidence to feed forward into those national projects, and that we also require as a criteria that staff both disseminate internally and externally, and at the point of application they're expected to articulate how they're going to do that. The funding evolves year on year because that depends how much is in the pot ultimately, but people, when they're putting forward for their bid, are expected to articulate quite clearly how the funding will be used, and there's a range of things that they can do that with. So it could be to purchase a piece of equipment to support some teaching, learning and assessment activity, and therefore then there would be an evaluation of that tool against standard tools. It may be used for travel, so that might be for information collection and looking at how others in the sector are doing things. It could be for transcription if there's been some interviews done or there's been focus groups, and so therefore that would be a valid means of using the funding. And many of us have used the project to actually pay for research assistance, so that they get involved in both the data collection, the analysis and some of the data sort of dissemination activities. I'm going to hand over to Julie to give a bit more of the detail of the actual projects.
Hi there. So far we have funded 6 strands of projects since the inception of the scheme. As Andrea said, we've usually tied these in with whatever the enhancement theme is at the time. So you'll see, for example, at Left 3 was very much focused around student transitions, as that was the enhancement theme at the time. It covered a wide variety of topics, including looking at our graduate attributes and how we help students identify those in the curriculum, to people looking at our paternity leave policies and how they might impact on student engagement in the curriculum. This particular slide captures the external output that we've gathered from staff. We ask them regularly about what outputs that they've had from their projects, and we also encourage them to put them into Pure, which is our research management system. There is a little bit of a time lag, obviously, because the later projects, they haven't necessarily got those journal articles and things accepted. So we routinely check with people what outputs they've been having. It's a requirement of funding that they all must present at our internal conference, which we hold every 2 years. A number of these projects are also then involved in workshops in our monthly staff development seminars, and a number of them have also influenced our internal policies and practice. So there's a big internal impact for them, as well as these external impacts. As you can see, there's a variety of external activities, including book chapters, journal articles, a lot of conference presentations. This is where the enhancement themes conferences always come in very useful, because we tie them in with the enhancement themes, then people have got a really useful vehicle for presenting that work. And it does depend on sort of what's going on in the sector. So those ATLEF 4 projects on the development of online resources, I can imagine that we'll be seeing quite a few of those re-emerging and potentially being put out to the sector. If you could move on, Andrea. Perfect. So far we've had 32 funded projects over the 6 streams. It's involved 28 staff as principal investigators. As Andrew's already said, it really does offer an opportunity for staff to get involved in research, and it gives a good opportunity for staff to be involved as principal investigator. What we found is that because we've had sort of 28 different members of staff as PIs over the projects, then it's not the same people again and again who are acting as the PIs. We get a variety of people. We try to encourage members of staff who haven't put in for projects but have got an interesting idea to put forward, and we really try and support those members of staff. Of those, 22 members of staff are still at Abertay. I should say that we have around 200 academic staff. So in terms of a proportion of academic staff, it's really a positive one. And 15 of them are still actively disseminating their ATLEF project output. And what we also find is that they might have the initial project, but that then gets upscaled across the institution. And so the project's still going on, but not necessarily funded under the ATLEF banner. And that's where we also have a number of staff who are actively engaged in undertaking higher education pedagogic research. Some of it has come out of projects that were held under ATLEF, and others have just come from ideas from their own practice. One of the really useful tangential outcomes is that where we've been using student researchers, and as Andrea said, that all projects must have students involved in the project, not as just the participants, but actually active parts of the project team, is that a number of projects have a job application process. So students, if we advertise for these positions, there is a written application form, they're interviewed, and so it gives those students a really good set of employability skills in terms of seeking jobs and how to go through that process. And those forms and that process has been used more widely in the university, not just within the ATLEF projects. We do continue to support pedagogic research and dissemination, doing things like helping staff locate their vehicles for dissemination, acting as critical friends for written work and for presentations. So we're keeping that pedagogic research support ongoing.
And really just to finish in terms of the key messages that we would want people to take away from this, which is that we think this is a really worthwhile activity. As I said right at the outset, universities are about research and teaching, but we need to put the two together and ensure that our pedagogic research gets the same profile sometimes as some of the disciplinary research. And this is part of a sort of drive within our own institution to kind of raise the profile of teaching, for people to take pride in that and to be rewarded and recognised for the work that they're doing and the evidence base that they're providing. It certainly has allowed us as an institution to involve some of our teaching, learning and assessment kind of policies and practice procedures and sort of kind of ethos. But what we're trying to encourage staff really more so is to do that much more on a platform outside, and to shout about and celebrate some of the evidence that they've found, the good work that they're doing. We have recognised in doing the review of the information that in terms of the types of output that people are doing, that it could be of a kind of higher order. At the moment, it's much more kind of case study type of types of output. What we want to do is really drive up the quality and the impact of that, so that it could be included in the REF, either at subject level or even as a separate unit of assessment. But in order to do that, we need to start fostering much more external collaborations and looking at the scale and also the methodologies that people are applying. And so that's work in progress within the institution, and we're building those connections as a community as well. So thank you very much for listening. If you want to know any further details, then Julie, I and Alistair can all be contacted. Julie and I are on our email addresses at abertay.ac.uk, and Alistair's now at Glasgow Caledonia University. We would welcome any further questions. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.